Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. If you're a BSc Food Science and Quality Control student, you already know that food law can sometimes feel like a massive maze of legal jargon. But don't worry, we are going to break it all down completely. This session is designed specifically to give you the ultimate, high-yield overview of the FSSA Act, rules, and regulations. By the end of this, you'll have the exact structure and the key concepts you need to absolutely ace your upcoming exam questions. We're using a straightforward, top-down framework today to build your understanding step by step. We'll start with a quick look at the history, clarify the core legal concepts, map out the FSSAI structure, look at enforcement, and finally end with the exact offenses and penalties you need to memorize. To really understand the current law, we actually have to start by looking at the absolute chaos that came before it. You really can't appreciate the solution until you grasp just how bad the problem was. Before 2006, India's food sector was tangled in a veritable grid of regulation. We had 8 completely different laws, things like the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act of 1954 and the Fruit Products Order of 1955. It caused massive confusion. Imagine trying to run a simple food business back then and suddenly realizing you needed clearances from 3 entirely different government ministries, health, agriculture, and commerce, just to legally sell a single jar of fruit jam. It was overlapping, deeply inefficient, and frankly, a bureaucratic nightmare. The country desperately needed a single comprehensive law. This right here is the paradigm shift examiners love to test you on. We fundamentally moved from having multiple, fragmented authorities out hunting for adulteration to having a single, unified reference point dedicated to holistic food safety. Instead of just reacting and controlling things after a public health problem happened, the new system focuses proactively on monitoring and surveillance. Crucially, it made good manufacturing and hygiene practices, GMP and GHP, mandatory rather than just optional guidelines. And finally, we shifted away from immediate, drawn-out court prosecutions and introduced a much faster system of adjudication and graded penalties. For your historical timeline questions, the timeline's actually pretty straightforward. The initial spark happened in 1998, when a unified authority was suggested. But the critical year to remember is 2006. That's the year the Food Safety and Standards Act was officially passed by Parliament, finally converging those 8 old laws into one. FSSAI itself was constituted in 2008, and the actual actionable rules and regulations didn't come into full enforcement until August 5th, 2011. All right, moving into our second section, let's lock down some precise legal definitions that you will definitely need for your short answer questions. Getting these distinctions right shows the examiner you truly grasp the legal framework. It breaks down quite simply. The Act dictates what is to be regulated. The rules dictate how and who enforces it, and the regulations provide the specific actionable standards. Think of it like this. The FSS Act of 2006 is the primary legislation from Parliament. It's the big boss. The FSS Rules of 2011 are the secondary legislation, setting up the enforcement mechanism, the how. And finally, the FSS Regulations of 2011 are the specific bylaws that get updated as science changes, like dictating the exact safe limit of a preservative in that jar of jam we talked about earlier. Now, you must memorize the legal definition of food word for word. It's very broad. It strictly includes things you might not immediately think of, like chewing gum, packaged water, and any water used during food preparation. But it explicitly excludes drugs and animal feed. Also, pay close attention. It excludes live animals unless they are already prepared or processed for placing on the market, and it excludes plants prior to harvesting. This is a classic trap in multiple choice questions, so keep those exact inclusions and exclusions crystal clear in your mind. You also need to be able to list the specific categories of food recognized under the Act. Pay special attention to proprietary food. This refers to food that doesn't have a specified standard written out by FSSA yet. Proprietary foods are a huge deal in today's innovative startup industry. The law essentially says, okay, even if we haven't written a specific standard for your brand new snack concept, it absolutely cannot contain prohibited ingredients, and above all, it cannot be unsafe. Make sure you can also quickly list primary food, genetically modified food, organic food, and functional foods or nutraceuticals on your exam paper. Let's move on and map out the actual bureaucratic hierarchy of the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. Knowing exactly who reports to whom is essential for understanding how this law operates in the real world. It builds a perfect, logical, top-down organizational chart. It flows directly from the central government at the very top, which oversees the Central Food Authority, meaning FSSAI. Below that, at the state level, you have the Commissioner of Food Safety. The commissioner oversees the designated officers for specific areas, who in turn manage the food safety officers, the folks actually out in the field inspecting businesses. And supporting all of this enforcement are the food analysts working hard in the accredited laboratories.
Keep in mind, the Food Authority isn't just an administrative office shuffling papers. Its core statutory mandate is establishing the hard science-based safety standards. They set the strict limits for additives, contaminants, and pesticide residues. They also handle the accreditation of certification bodies and the laboratories that test our food. Oh, and they dictate the exact rules for what a company legally has to print on a food label.
Make sure you can contrast these two groups for your exam, the Central Advisory Committee versus the scientific panels. The Central Advisory Committee handles strategic cooperation. They identify risks, set work priorities, and basically make sure the central authority and the state enforcement agencies are actually talking and working together smoothly. The scientific panels, on the other hand, provide the actual rigorous scientific opinions. They are highly specialized. You'll have distinct panels for things like food additives, pesticide residues, GMOs, and biological hazards. If a complex issue arises with a new health supplement, it goes straight to that specific scientific panel for an independent review. So, how are these rules actually enforced out in the wild? Let's take a look.
This is where the law truly meets the food business operator. If an essay question asks you why the FSS Act was introduced, this is your cheat sheet. You must list these key provisions. It created a single window system. It mandated licensing and registration for everyone. It introduced totally modern concepts like mandatory food recall procedures and the implementation of HACCP and food safety management systems. Think about it. Before this act, if a massive batch of food was found to be toxic, there was no solid legal framework forcing a company to quickly recall it from store shelves across the country. The FSS Act brought in these global best practices, making self-compliance a new normal. Examiners absolutely love comparing these two roles, the designated officer and the food safety officer. The designated officer primarily handles the administrative side. Think of them as the manager at the desk. They grant your food business license, they serve you an improvement notice if your standards are slipping, and they sanction prosecutions. The food safety officer is the inspector walking into your kitchen. For the exam, you need to memorize their specific powers. They can enter and inspect premises, take food samples, seize adulterants, and importantly, they have the power to destroy food that is clearly unfit for human consumption after following due procedure. They are the true boots on the ground.
And finally, we reach the section that requires a bit of pure rote memorization. What exactly happens when things go wrong and rules are broken?
Under the new paradigm, operating without a valid license or selling unsafe food triggers swift adjudication. This completely replaced the old system's reliance on direct, drawn-out court prosecutions. Instead of immediately clogging up the criminal courts for a minor labeling error, the FSS Act allows for an adjudicating officer to quickly levy financial penalties. It's much faster and much more efficient.
Now, you will need to map these specific offenses directly to the concept of graded penalties for your case study questions. The whole idea is that the punishment fits the crime. A minor unhygienic processing violation or having extraneous matter that lowers quality but isn't dangerous might just result in a financial penalty. But if you are selling unsafe food that contains hazards causing adverse health effects, that's going to lead to severe compensation requirements to consumers, huge fines, and potential imprisonment. For the exam, linking the severity of the hazard to the severity of the penalty and knowing the exact legal distinction between substandard, misbranded, and unsafe is your absolute key to mastering this section.
So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to test your understanding before exam day. How it is shifting from simply trying to catch adulteration after the fact to ensuring holistic, science-based food safety fundamentally change the entire way this law is enforced. Think about how moving from a reactive, catch-the-criminal mindset to a proactive, prevent-the-risk mindset changes the everyday, practical job of a food safety officer. Ponder that as you review your notes tonight. You have totally got this. Good luck with your studying.